In Attilan, the Inhumans are preparing. Carol Danvers herself has asked for their help. Ulysses wants to know what they are fighting over, but the young man is only told that he won't be much use today. And Karnak comments that is a good thing. Above the Triskelion, the battle rages on in force. Tony attacks Carol, which she says is foolish given her ability to redirect energy. However, Stark hasn't forgotten a damn thing, and his attack is specially designed to knock her out. As Danvers tumbles to the ground, Iron Man looks around and asks who's next. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange attacks the X-Men, surprised to see them here. They think Ulysses will spare the world from heartache and bloodshed, and aren't so easily defeated. The battle rages on like this while the world watches in awe. Matt Murdock listens intently, while Mary Jane observes from Stark headquarters. Meanwhile, somewhere secluded, Clint Barton walks, alone, and clearly depressed. At the battle, Sam Wilson squares off against Illyana Rasputin, also known as Magik. Before they can fight, Wilson finds himself transported to Hollywood. Magik is pleased until she is hit in the head by an arrow. Elsewhere, Rocket Raccoon is just enjoying the crap out of himself when he is knocked down by Miles Morales. Agent Venom then leaps into the fray, recognizing Miles isn't the Spider-Man he knows. He is offended someone would use that uniform to fight for something that Flash sees as against everything the real Spider-Man believes in. Miles, tired of people telling him how he should act and what he should do, gives the symbiote a taste of his Venom Blast. As Peter Quill is annoyed to be stuck against one of the guys with a shield, Iron Man contacts him, having hacked into Star-Lord's helmet. Tony says he's really surprised and a little hurt to see the Guardians here, and Peter explains they're here to help a friend. Stark thought they were friends too, and Quill says, well, they kind of like Carol more, and they like what she's doing here even better. The Guardians are fully aware of everything that's happened on Earth, and readily accept it. As they argue, an attack from Vision passes through Shadowcat and destroys the Guardian ship, much to the dismay of the team. From a distance, Ulysses observes this and begins to cry. At the site of the battle, the Inhumans arrive, and Tony knows things are turning against him. At this point, they're outnumbered, and he isn't doing well. As this happens, strange tendrils begin to emerge from Ulysses, who does not understand what is happening. They begin to wrap around the Triskelion. Stark begins to get overwhelmed, and then Carol leaps into the fray. She's all his now. Danvers gives Tony one last chance to surrender as she pummels him into submission. Stark begins sensing Ulysses' new abilities and tries to warn her, but it's too late. The tendrils wrap around all the heroes, and then everyone, especially Miles and Miss Marvel, cannot believe what they are seeing. But that does not matter. Carol Danvers places the young Spider-Man under arrest. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of Civil War II number 5. Well, this was fun. Last issue I was getting a bit tired of all the posturing and was ready to get into some real action. I'm all good on that front now. This comic was exactly what I wanted and more, because the ending is yet again going to meet some pretty big shifts in the story next issue. Poor Miles. I've got to say, knowing what's going on with Cap right now, and the fact that I happen to be following Miles' own comic already, means the next month or so is going to be very interesting to say the least. So yeah, I'm pretty much still on board with Civil War II at this point. If you haven't noticed, this issue was delayed quite a bit, by almost a full month, and the whole event has been extended to 8 issues instead of the planned 7. That's not a huge deal, but is hilarious, because that's exactly what Marvel did last year with Secret Wars. Still, in this case, I think it's good for Civil War II. The delays don't help the matter, especially considering Marvel's current sales troubles against DC, but given the story, I think it's for the best. That was my big problem with issue 4, is that we were more than halfway through and it felt like we were only getting to the war now. It's good they put in so much work for setup. It's even better that they're now spending an equal amount of time on the payoff. You need both, and now it feels like we're getting that. Much like the first Civil War, this one does seem to be a bit polarizing to the fan community. There are some, like myself, who see the story for what it is. A fun read with some improvements over the first Civil War, but largely the same idea. Both are kind of imperfect, yet enjoyable reads with some thought to them, and otherwise a whole bunch of heroes punching each other in the face. What more can you ask for? Others may have more legitimate complaints that I do see and are there, but they just don't bother me. But there is the third group that seem to just want to hate this story for the sake of hating it. For example, a common complaint I'm hearing is that all these deaths in the story are being attributed as shock value. This is the sort of objection that seems to come from people parroting what other critics have said about other titles because it just doesn't make sense here. Shock value generally refers to a death being done without setup or consequence, just to surprise the audience. Neither of which is really true when it happened to both Banner and Rhodey. Yes, these were surprising moments and big plot twists, but those deaths informed the entire war. So how can it be done just for shock value when it's a huge part of what Tony is doing, why this stuff is happening, and why he has a problem with all of this to begin with? It's clearly having an effect on many characters, not just Tony in this story, so I think this complaint is being lobbied because people want and like to complain. Similarly, people pointing out minor things that weren't explained as being evidence of the story sucking or having plot holes, I don't know, usually this stuff just requires a bit of common sense or like the most basic leap of logic on your part. For example, how did Rhodey have missiles powerful enough to injure She-Hulk? I don't know, they were fighting Thanos at the time, maybe he brought something a little more powerful than napalm. Why did that trial happen so quickly? Well, it was kind of a big deal, so maybe it was rushed, but it's also implied quite a bit of time has passed between these issues. The point is, this can be a fun comic if you let it be. If you're gonna fret about details like this, well, I don't understand how you enjoy anything. Let's put it this way, I'm sure somewhere out there there's this magical story where everything is explained and there are no plot holes whatsoever. I'm also 100% certain that whatever that story is, it's not the world's greatest story. In fact, I bet that it's lame or too expository trying to explain every stupid little detail. The best stories, and even good ones like this, they have plot holes. They have things that you either have to suspend your disbelief over, ignore, or just fill in the blanks yourself. Plot holes only matter when they're glaring or the story is so bad you can't help but notice them, because everything else is just so boring or dumb. Neither of which I really feel applies to Civil War 2. On its own, pointing out plot holes just seems like nitpicking to me, especially if the story itself is good, or enjoyable, or just not that big of a deal one way or another. It's not like you have to enjoy this story or even have a good reason for disliking it. I just am really getting frustrated with how people tend to look down on others for liking something, because that kind of makes you a dick. To be clear, the story is far from perfect. I wouldn't go so far as to call it that. There's a lot of issues and there's plenty of stupid moments for all the really cool stuff that happened here. For example, I find a lot of the dialogue off. We get a sample of what the media think of all this, and while they do the correct thing of them kind of freaking out, they also are acting like this is the end of the superhero era, when given the history of the Marvel Universe, I think their reaction would be more along the lines of, oh my god, they're doing this again. Carol's dialogue can also come across as a bit off. Usually her banter with Tony Stark up until now has been pretty polished and on the level. In this issue, at times it gets into the territory of, you're a big ol' meanie, Tony Stark! While his replies are a little more reasonable, but he can go in that direction too here. Still, it's good, and these problems are easy to overlook because, like I said, it's a big event. This is gonna happen. There are stupid moments, even in the good ones. And I do enjoy what's going on here. It's pretty significant, all things considered. Things aren't gonna be the same from here on out, and at this point, it's a war. Who knows where things are going from here. I'm still really curious what Peter Parker's going to do now, and we haven't seen much of him in the core series yet. The art is also really something. David Marquez has been doing a great job with Civil War 2, and here is no different. In fact, with all the fighting and stuff, he really gets to flex some of his muscles here, and this is just him at his best. Anyhow, I did like and recommend this comic. Right now, Civil War II is one of the handful of things that Marvel really has going for it, and for me, as someone who enjoyed the first Civil War and had measured expectations for this one, I'm still with this story, for now. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.